Seems promising.
Yeah, did I get it right? Hey, how about that?
Thanks. All right, I'm ready.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call to order the April 9th City Council meeting. It is 7 p.m. If you are able, please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have the open forum. You can call into the open forum by dialing 1-415-655-0001. Use webinar access code 2632-188-8516, and the password is 1234. It doesn't look like there's anyone on the line. All right, if you're here in person, when you come up, you can identify yourself with your name and your address and sign in on the sheet, and then I'll start timing after that, and everyone has 3 minutes. I have one request to speak. Is there anyone else that wants to turn one in? All right, so it looks like we have a second request so we can get a sheet back to Mr. Ernster. So I'm going to go ahead and call on Heidi Geibor and you can comment up.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Heidi Geibor, 6915 Wentworth, here in Richfield. I am confused about something, and I'm hoping that you can help me understand. I realize that you can't say anything in response to me here, but I probably am not the only one to have this question, so I hope that perhaps an explanation can be given on the City of Richfield's website and/or in the Sun Current. As recently as today, the City of Richfield is encouraging the public to give input on a survey for the new Wood Lake Nature Center building by urging us that we need your insight. Whether you're a daily user or have never been to Wood Lake, we want to know what you would like to see in a new facility. But in last Thursday's Sun Current newspaper of April 4th, in the small print legal notices, I noticed that there was a request published for a construction manager for pre-construction and construction services for the Nature Center building, along with specifications of what was to be included. So I guess that the first piece of clarification that I'm looking for is that without full funding yet, and still giving the public perception that our input is being sought and considered, for how long have specific plans been set for the tear down and construction of a new building at Wood Lake? And the second piece of clarification is the information that has been publicly shared is that this is to be a building to replace the aging infrastructure of the Nature Center building. But the city's solicitation for a construction manager specifies that duties will include removal of an approximately 4,000 square foot building and construction of a 19,000 square foot building. That means that the new building will be nearly 5 times the size of the current space. With this information, together with the questions in the survey, I'm led to believe that thought is being given to, or plans are possibly already made, to make this the big fitness center and banquet space that some have been angling for years. So a third question is, are you going to continue to value what the city has always termed in the past as the gem of Richfield, Wood Lake Nature Center, as a nature center? Or are we going to take away more of the nature within the park to build the 19,000 square foot hulking fitness center and banquet facility with space for nature center activities within it? I, and I would imagine others, will be interested in being presented with a transparent view of what is actually happening with this Wood Lake project. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and then I believe there was another person. Mr. Ernster, did you want to speak?
Hi, Larry Ernster, 6727 Elliott Avenue South. I have a process question that just came to me. Really didn't plan on speaking tonight. But tonight, on the proposed ordinances, tonight's supposed to be the second reading on the salary proposal. And as a citizen, on the first reading, we haven't been really offered, here's what we're going to do. There's been three different options. Tonight, we have three different options. And so, does it qualify that the city hasn't really presented a reading, here's what we're going to do to the citizens, but instead offered, well, here's things we may or may not do, without a decision being made? Now, if I'm reading the papers tonight, the packet, it appears that what you want to do is increase salary by thousands of dollars, give a raise in addition to their annual increase, and we could end up with a 7% property levy, increase of 7% in our property taxes. So it's a process question. Does what you've proposed actually qualify as a reading, since no decision has been made on what you're going to do? That's my question.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? And no one else has called in, so we're going to close the open forum and move on to the approval of the minutes of the City Council work session of March 26, 2024, and the City Council meeting of March 26, 2024.
I move approval of both sets of minutes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve both sets. Are there any corrections or changes? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we will move on then to the next part. We have the approval of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. Are there any questions or changes? All in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
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 All opposed? And we've approved the agenda. All right. Next, we have the proclamation celebrating Arab American Heritage Month. And I realized I don't have a copy up here, so I'm going to read it from up here, and then we'll be joined by the member of the HRC that's joining us. So let me open this up here. I have to find it first here. And maybe, do I even have it in here? Okay. Thank you for your patience. We're getting there. And we're going to welcome a representative of the HRC, Michael Zazara. And thank you for page 12. Okay. Make it easier just to go to 12. All right. So I'm going to read it, and then you can join me up at the podium. whereas Arab American Heritage Month celebrates the beautiful intellectual and cultural heritage of Arab Americans and all their achievements and contributions to Richfield, Minnesota, the United States, and the world, and whereas Arab American Heritage Month began as an initiative in 2017, and with only a few states and cities, it is now being recognized on a national level, which began in April 2021 as President Biden became the first U.S. president to proclaim Arab American Heritage Month. And whereas over 3.5 million Arab Americans have contributed to many facets of American society, including arts, business, economics, education, and social services, and whereas we celebrate the accomplishments of such distinguished Arab Americans as journalist and speaker Noor Tagori and Representative Rashida Tlaib from Michigan, and whereas Arab Americans have faced discrimination, racial profiling, and violence both domestically and abroad, and whereas the City of Richfield is proud of the people, community, and business of Arab Americans and is looking forward to the continuing success of Arab Americans in our community. Now, therefore, I, Mary Supple, Mayor of Richfield, on behalf of the City of Richfield City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2024 as Arab American Heritage Month in the City of Richfield, and call on the people of Richfield to observe this month with appropriate programs, activities, and ceremonies, and continue to honor the contributions of Arab Americans throughout the year. Proclaim this 9th day of April 2024. So if you want to join me. So thank you for receiving this proclamation, and also thank you to the Human Rights Commission. Did you want to add something?
Sure, I have a quick statement here. All right. Thank you, Mayor Supple and Council. I would encourage all members of our community to listen to our Arab neighbors so that we may learn from them and elevate their voices.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And then Clerk Leslie, we get the signed copy? We'll get that officially done after the meeting. Thank you. All right, is there any other comments or questions? All right, let's see. Moving on, we have the consent calendar, so I'm going to turn it over to City Manager Katie Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor. The consent calendar contains several separate items which are acted upon by the City Council in one motion. Once the consent calendar has been approved, the individual items and recommended actions have also been approved. No further council action on these items is necessary. On tonight's consent calendar, item A, consider the approval of the first reading of an ordinance amending section 925 relating to the abatement of public health nuisances and assessment of abatement costs to property. Item B, consider the approval of the new opioid services agreement with the City of Bloomington effective January 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2028. Item C, consider the adoption of a resolution identifying the need for livable communities, policy development funding, and authorizing an application for grant funds. Item D, consider a request for an amended planned unit development for a time extension of an amendment to the construction agreement for a multi-story parking ramp at 1401 77th Street East, Audi, Richfield. Item E, consider the approval of the Intensive Comprehensive Peace Officer Education and Training 2024 grant between the City of Richfield Police Department and the Minnesota Department of Public Safety's Office of Justice Programs to fund a non-traditional police officer candidate. Item F, consider approval of a resolution authorizing the utilization of a construction manager at risk process for the Woodlake Nature Center building project and authorizing staff and the city attorney to complete the selection process and engage in contract negotiations. Item G, consider the approval of the CDC Infrastructure Grant Services Agreement with the City of Bloomington effective January 1, 2024 through November 30th, 2027. Item H, the Urban Area Security Initiative program funds address the unique risk-driven and capabilities-based planning, organization, equipment training, and exercise needs of high-threat, high-density urban areas based on the capability targets identified during the, threat and hazard identification and risk assessment process and associated assessment efforts, and assist them in building an enhanced and sustainable capacity to prevent, protect against, mitigate, respond to, and recover from acts of terrorism. And I submit all these items for your consideration as part of tonight's consent calendar.
I wanted to clarify in item H, we're considering accepting that UASI grant agreement. So just to clarify that.
That is correct.
All right, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Do we have any discussion? I want to thank all of the staff for all of the grant writing they've been doing. There are a lot of resources that are coming into the city because of the hard work of the staff. And when you go through here, and the majority of this consent calendar is grant money that we're bringing into the city. All right, is there any other discussion? All in favor of approving the consent calendar, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we have approved the consent calendar. Next, we're going to move on to proposed ordinances, and I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Whalen.
Thank you, Mayor. This item is to consider the second reading of an ordinance amending subsection 210.01 of the City Code related to City Council salaries for 2025 and 2026. Chapter 2, Section 210 of the City Code establishes the salaries of the City Council. Subsection 210.01, Subdivision 5, provides that salaries of council members shall be reviewed by the City Council by May 1st in each year in which an election is held, pursuant to Section 200 of the Code. An ordinance amending the salaries established by this section must not take effect until after the next succeeding municipal election. The city has a 30-year history of providing the same cost of living increase to all of its employee groups. The attached ordinance provides for increases in 2025 and 2026 to match the increases provided in the general pay plans for those years. The anticipated cost of living increase for 2025 and 2026 is not known at this time. The cost of living increase has been 3% for the past 7 years, and the 2025 increase will be set as part of the budget process. In the past, City Council has also reviewed their salaries compared to other metropolitan cities. There's information attached in the full packet on other metropolitan cities' City Council salaries. Even with a 3% increase, the City Council's salary would be in the middle of the pay scale for surrounding metropolitan cities' salaries. So just to clarify, this is not related to the work session topic for city staff salaries and pay. This is just for the 5 elected positions. Does staff have anything to add on this item?
We're available for questions.
Okay, thank you. So then I would make the motion to approve the second reading of the ordinance amending subsection 210.01 of the City Code related to City Council salaries and approve a resolution authorizing summary publication of said ordinances.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded. Do we have any questions, comments, discussion? I did have one question. It says in the staff report that it'll be part of the budget process. Can you kind of go through the steps for that?
I can. Thank you, Mayor Supple. So each year we look at cost of living increases, and we study that and check with our peer cities, and then give direction to the directors, not only for cost of living increases, but also to keep their budgets within certain parameters, and that direction gets given to them as part of the budget package in May. We have not made that determination yet, However, it has been, COLAs for both Richfield and neighboring city, well, not even neighboring cities, cities regionally, has been about 3%. But that decision has not been made yet. And so the past practice has been that the council salaries are set to be consistent with the cost of living increases, not merit increases, but cost of living increases that are set for the general pay plan.
So to reiterate what Councilmember Whalen said, this is separate from the comp and class study that was at the work session?
That is correct. This is just for the elected positions, and it refers to just the cost of living increase. What we discussed at the work session was specifically the general and the specialized pay plans, which is about 300 staff, and looking at updating pay plans for them based on an 18-month study.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We have approved the second reading and authorized the summary publication. Next, we'll move on to item 6, and I'll turn it over to Councilmember Troutman.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a notification regarding the Richfield Police Department's planned acquisition of unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, and providing an opportunity for public comment at a regularly scheduled meeting. No other council considerations or decisions are required. Unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, commonly referred to as drones, are used to assist law enforcement with public safety and emergency responses. Law enforcement agencies across the country have utilized UAVs because of the beneficial impact on public safety, including the ability to gather information in response to real-time emergencies, missing persons, crime scene documentation, fugitive searches, assessing severe weather damage, community events, and traffic accident mapping. The Richfield Police Department plans to join 100+ other law enforcement agencies in Minnesota with its own UAV program. The city's use of the drones will be guided by Minnesota State Statute 625-19, which governs the use of unmanned aerial vehicles by law enforcement. The statute requires a law enforcement agency to provide an opportunity for public comment before it purchases or uses a UAV. At a minimum, the agency must accept public comments submitted electronically or by mail. The governing body with jurisdiction over a budget of a local law enforcement agency must provide an opportunity for public comment at a regularly scheduled meeting. To fulfill this requisite, the Richfield Police Department will accept public comment through an online survey via the department's Facebook page and through an opportunity for comment at a Richfield City Council meeting. So the notification of regarding the police department's planned acquisition of an unmanned aerial vehicle, UAVs, providing an opportunity for public comment at a regularly scheduled meeting. So we're going to open this up. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody that would like to speak on the subject? Oh, do we need to?
We're
we're
setting the
noticing.
date.
Thank you. That's why. All right. This is the notice of the public hearing. Thank you. I read that slightly wrong. So this is there's nothing.
Mayor and council member, this is the public hearing.
Okay.
Sorry, it was not clear.
Oh,
Glad we clarified.
Yes. So this is the public hearing. Did I see that hand, Larry, or Mr. Ernster? Excuse me.
all right. So we've opened up the public hearing, and you can state
Larry
your
Ernster,
name.
6727 Elliott Avenue South. First, I fully support the acquisition of this, and I support the chief. But I've just been back from vacation early this morning, so I haven't had a chance to prepare. So I'm going to use this part of the public hearing to point out, again, process. I think it's strange that if you look at the consent calendar, item G, consider the approval of the CDC infrastructure grant with the city of Bloomington. It's now April. You want to consider the grant that started in January 1st. It seems like a little mismanagement there. Same thing if you look at item V, consider the approval, and I'm not against that. I fully support the program. Same thing, I fully support item B, which is the opioid agreement. However, the process, you're asking for approval for something that started in January 1st. It seems more mismanagement. And if I may, so many times things are brought to the city council, kind of a hurry up, we have to do it or we'll lose it. Again, if you look at the Livable Communities Policy Program, the applications are due April 22nd.
Mr. Ernster, Mayor, could I just interject only because and this is just a clarification, a point of order. If there are comments that are not germane to the subject, is it appropriate to have ongoing public comment that's not responsive to the topic of the public comment?
If you could stick to the UAV question, that would be great.
Okay. Again, I fully support the chief in his acquisition of his drones.
All right, thank you.
But I couldn't resist pointing out city mismanagement.
All right, thank you. Is there
Mayor?
anyone else that, City Manager Rodriguez?
Yes, Mayor and Council, and I did want to correct myself. I said this was a public hearing. It is actually a public comment, so it is not a formal public hearing.
All right. Does anyone else wish to comment on the UAVs? Did you want to, Chief Henthorn, did you want to go through the information? Was staff planning to present that?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. I have tonight here Corey Smith, who is the sergeant who has been developing our unmanned aerial vehicle program for the last year and a half. This is something that we've looked at that other cities have had. We've modeled ours after some of what we've learned from other communities, both in their programs, but also looking at federal and state statutes. So I'd like to invite him up to the podium to present a short PowerPoint about what our program would look like and obviously the statutory guidelines that we must follow when we implement a program like this.
Okay, welcome. And then after you're finished, if there are further comments that anyone in the audience wishes to make, we'll allow that as well. So welcome and go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and City Council members. I got a quick PowerPoint I'll go through. It should cover most of the state statute and kind of the idea around it. Also with me today is Sean Qualley. He works for Vertex Unmanned Solutions. He's going to be the company that we're going to be acquisitioning the drones from and doing some of the initial training for us. So some of the UAV benefits, they're a force multiplier. They provide the ability to cover a larger area in a short amount of time. You know, it extends kind of our ability on the ground with a few officers and getting a higher overhead view kind of gives us the bigger picture of, you know, whatever the situation may be. We can quickly deploy a UAV to search area for suspects and missing persons and gives us a situational awareness, provides a live feed with, and gives officers live and accurate information to help with decision making during events. There's a short video if it'll play. This is one of, not in Minnesota, but another agency that used drone with thermal technology to find a missing 2-year-old that was lost in the woods. It's a short video. You see here, there's the officer on foot looking for the child, and you'll see the drone pan over to where the child is out in the woods, which would be pretty hard to find at night without the use of the drone. And then the officer flying the drone can then guide the officers directly into the child or firefighters, first responders, you know, to rescue or save people. There's over 100 public safety agencies currently using UAV technology throughout Minnesota. Numerous others are currently taking the steps necessary to start their own programs, providing their communities with invaluable technology and life-saving capabilities. According to the FAA, there's currently over 50,000 public safety agencies with UAV programs throughout the United States, and 17,985 of those are law enforcement agencies. So kind of the way that we're going to be staffing it, we'll have a program commander that oversees the UAV program and ensure that department policies and state and federal laws are followed. The commander will approve training, ensure proper data collection, and reporting to the BCA and the FAA. The sergeant will head up the day-to-day operations over the program, be responsible for training, documentation, and supervision of all of the pilots. And then lead pilot that will be in charge of training, maintenance, and inventory of all the aircraft and its equipment. Some of the potential deployment scenarios we could look at would be life safety, search and rescue of vulnerable or missing adults and children, emergency situations that pose a risk to public safety, water rescue, flood weather assessments, natural disaster response, crime scene, accident reconstruction and mapping, community engagement, and public works and inspections. Some of the FAA rules and regulations that will guide us is must fly at or below 400 feet. In some areas in Richfield, it will actually be lower than that due to the proximity to the airport. The drone needs to be kept within the visual line of sight at all times by the pilot and the visual observer. Can't fly in any restricted airspace without a waiver from the FAA. The UAV must yield right away to all aircraft, and the UAV must not fly over crowds of people. Minnesota State Statute 62619 states that all authorized uses will comply with statute, and 626.19 sub 2, which requires a search warrant except as provided in 62619 sub 3. And I get into that in the next page. UAV are shown to significantly reduce exposure of the community to life and safety risks by allowing first responders to leverage time, distance, and cover when handling violent, dangerous, and treacherous situations. Some of the prohibited uses, or all the prohibited uses per 62619, are the agency must comply with all FAA requirements and standards. The agency must not deploy UAV with facial recognition or other biometric matching technology unless expressly authorized by a warrant. The agency must not equip a UAV with weapons, and the agency must not use a UAV to collect data on public protests or demonstrations unless expressly authorized by a warrant or an exception that applies under Subdivision 3. This is Subdivision 3, the authorized uses. During or in the aftermath of an emergency situation that involves the risk of death or bodily harm to a person over a public event where there is a heightened risk to the safety of participants or bystanders, to counter the risk of a terrorist attack by specific individual or organization if the agency determines the credible intelligence indicates a risk, to prevent the loss of life and property in natural or man-made disasters, and to facilitate operational planning, rescue, and recovery operations in the aftermath of these disasters, to conduct a threat assessment in anticipation of a specific event, to collect information from a public area if there is reasonable suspicion of criminal activity, to collect information for crash reconstruction purposes after a serious or deadly collision occurring on a public roadway, over a public area for officer training or public relation purposes, and for purposes unrelated to law enforcement at the request of the government entity, provided that the government entity makes the request in writing to the law enforcement agency and specifies the reason for the request and the proposed period of the use. Agency data, the BCA agency stats, I tried to find current ones, but they haven't posted them yet. So as of 2022, there's been 98 agencies reporting using their UAS and a total of 3,076 deployments. 1,328 were for training or public relation purposes. 699 were during or in the aftermath of an emergency situation that involves a risk of death or bodily harm to a person. 488 of them were for crash reconstruction purposes, and 561 for other uses regarding public safety. Transparency and accountability. Every use of the UAV will be reviewed before approval by a unit supervisor, and each flight will be thoroughly documented. Third-party software will store and upload all flight data. This includes the dates, time, altitude, speed, and direction of the UAV and the camera. Any complaints can be thoroughly investigated with the stored flight data. UAV flights, program costs, and additional data requirements will be sent to the FAA monthly and BCA annually based on statute. And privacy. The agency must not use a UAV to conduct random surveillance activities per 62619. Drones will not be deployed to target. Drones will be deployed to targeted felony-level crimes, canine searches, and state patrol helicopter assistance. No facial recognition capabilities per state statute policy, and the Richfield Police Department does not use it, and all the drones that we will have are consumer drones, the same drones that anybody would be able to purchase on their own. Deployment will be to look for a specific suspect or suspects. We are not looking for additional crimes or using it as a proactive tool. And non-evidentiary footage must be deleted as soon as possible and in no event later than 7 days after collection, and that's per state statute. And that's it. So I'm open to any questions anybody
All right.
might have.
Does council have any questions? Councilmember Troutman?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for that that presentation, and thanks to Chief Henthorn, who I had a few questions about the drone program and still do.
Yeah.
But first, I'd want to say that I recognize that it's an important and a useful tool, and it's obviously a tool that would be useful. I can imagine folks there's not a simpler, easy way to cover Wood Lake in a timely manner. You know, if you're trying to find
That
someone
would be
that's
one
either.
of the best use, or if anybody gets.
Yep.
like, many times we've had people lost in there, and
Yep.
even it's hard to cover that large of an area. You know, even with every officer and other agencies assisting. So, yeah, that's a perfect example.
Absolutely. So I just want to say that initially. I will say that the policies and the exemptions that exist right now, just by statute, are really large and they're really significant. So things like when it says there's no facial recognition, well, that's true, and there are a multiplicity and growing number of ways that you can recognize people that are not your face, and so by saying we don't just because you're identifying one stream of general recognition doesn't mean there are not a lot of other means of recognizing people, collecting data, and so they're probably too granular for one, just because I haven't had the time to go through. I'll just give you my general sense reading that is that the concern for privacy is, it seems apparent both in the state statute, but I really appreciate Chief circulating the city policy, which I know is still in draft form. But I just really want to highlight and lift up the opportunity we have to take people's civil liberties seriously. I know that the chief does, I know law enforcement does, but that within that presentation, I could go on, but I have real concerns. So I'd love to see that policy. I'd love to see that policy with consideration, not given to how we're retaining data, under what circumstances we would share that data with other agencies, state or federal or county, and then how we collect not just face recognition, but cell phone signals or other means of collection that don't exist now, but in 18 months surely will.
Okay, I understand your concerns. They're, I mean, the capability of them, again, like I said, they're consumer drones, so they don't really have that level of technology, nor would we ever purchase any because it would violate state statute. And again, they'd be directly targeted at a specific situation or scenario. They're not used to look for any additional information regarding, whatever they're directly deployed for. And then, as far as retaining any type of footage or evidence, it would be only used for evidentiary purposes, no different than body camera or squad video or surveillance video or anything else. It would be part of the actual case file itself. And then anything else that was deemed unnecessary would be deleted. Generally, I mean, state statutes within 7 days, but, most of them, the cards would be wiped. It's my understanding is typically right after the deployment if the information is not necessary. So, and then as far as the draft policy, we can work on getting copies of that. And again, it's still in draft form, so we're still working out the fine details of it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions, comments? Councilmember Hafer O'Leary?
I had a couple questions about the public comment process. You mentioned that the department's Facebook page would have a survey or some email link or something like that. Looks like that isn't up yet. When is the timing for when public input will be accepted?
Councilmember Hayford O'Leary, we'll get that up this week. We have a draft ready to go that we're reviewing at this time, but we'll have that up by the end of the week, and then it'll be up for a couple of weeks probably.
Okay. And can that input be shared with us as well? I'm not sure what you do with the input that's received through that form.
Once we get all the survey results, I can send it out to the council members.
Okay, thank you, I'd appreciate that. I'd also ask if it mentions the department's Facebook, but I hope it could also go on the general city Facebook and our email list, just because I know not everybody follows the department-specific one. My other question is just process-wise, if the policy were to change, like in some of the ways that Councilmember Troutman mentioned, if there were some sort of, I don't know, some sort of future sensor of concern and were permitted under state statute and RPD decides to do that, do we have to notify the public that there's a change in policy, or do we just have to notify them at this initial purchase?
Having read the statute, I believe that if there's any changes made statutorily, we would change our policy. I don't think that we have to go back out and have public comment period on that, but I would have to defer to our city attorney, Mary Teachin.
Mayor and Council, I agree with Chief Henthorn's interpretation of that.
Okay. And then my other question is, I guess when we're not looking for additional crimes or it's a proactive tool, how firm is that commitment? If the drone did witness something else in the course of pursuing something and you have that footage, is it a violation of your policy to prosecute the violation that was witnessed incidentally, or?
Yeah, it would be if let's say we were looking for maybe somebody that, let's say an elderly person that got lost and was walking through Wood Lake.
Yeah.
You know, if we happen to see something else, you know, it's used. The pilot's going to be directed at looking for the missing person, or if somebody maybe ran from us on foot and they're running through backyards, they're looking for that. You know, if something else is witnessed, you know, per state statute, that's not what it can be used for. It can be used for random surveillance. It's for a specified mission whenever it's deployed, and it'll only be deployed and used for specific things. It's not, you know, officers besides training aren't just going to go throw the drone in the air and go look for crimes. That's not what it's to be used for, and it will not be used for. And state statute governs that it cannot be used for that. So, you know, it will be used for. You know, for a good example, for if we have any type of like big, you know, events within the city, it can be used for, you know, to check the area, you know, prior to look for any type of threats. You know, it's not to be used for just random reasons. It will be for specified trainings or for direct deployments for a purpose.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments, questions? Councilmember Whalen?
I think the point that you've mentioned a couple times of them being like the same kinds of drones that are available to consumers is important, and I would guess I'm in a majority of people and that I've never looked at what drones you can buy as a consumer. And so if possible, when I don't know if it's what format the survey's in, but in any announcements we do, if we can include a picture, I'm guessing they're the like small helicopter style ones.
I actually own personally a couple of them. One of the ones that we're looking at, actually two of the ones we're looking at getting. So I've been flying drones for years and years, even before I was a cop. So yeah, for sure we can send something out of the specific models, makes, and everything that we're going to be purchasing from Vertix, and you can go on the websites. There's videos. It tells you everything it's capable of. You know, if you have questions specified, I can gladly answer those for you. I'm kind of well versed on them, as well as Sean is, since he sells them. But yeah, anybody can get them. They're nothing. They're not military grade. There's nothing that you can't go to Best Buy or to online and purchase the same exact drones. So
Yeah, and that's, I mean, it is. It's a valid concern, and in other cases there are, I believe, military technology that we don't need in small communities, and so I just want to make sure no one is seeing the headline of this and thinking we're getting like one of the small airplane drones that's got weapons and stuff.
yeah, and the FAA and state statute regulate that,
Right.
and we're purchasing the same ones that all the agencies around us are using. You know, they're the ones that are used throughout the country and throughout the world. So it's not anything out of ordinary. We're getting the same ones that most public agencies use because they work well and they're reliable. So.
And I believe, maybe this is putting staff on the spot, I believe our fire department already has one.
They have a tethered drone
Okay.
that's tied to a rope. There's a lot of licensing and regulation, a lot of stuff that has to be done first with the FAA to even get the license to be allowed to fly as a public, public safety entity. Now, that isn't to say that once we do get them, fire needs help with anything, with thermal cameras and stuff like that. We're going to work throughout the city for anywhere from public works to fire to public safety, everything that needs to be used. So it'll be available to pretty much anybody that needs to use it.
So that's a good lead into the question I had. A lot of the guidelines here seem to be talking about an exterior drone, but will we have some small ones? So
Yes.
that you could go into a building that was on fire to look for people that need rescuing and things like that?
Yeah, we are planning on getting a smaller one that's capable of flying indoor easier. They can all go indoors, but they're a little bit harder to control inside. They can't handle heat very well because they're made out of plastic, so it would depend on the situation, whether it could be used in a fire. But there are certain scenarios I'm sure it could be used, and it would be available if they needed it. But yes, there will be a smaller, we plan on purchasing a smaller one that will be able to go indoors.
So there will be a couple of different sizes so
Yes,
that we
yep.
have some variety to it.
Correct, yeah. Yeah, and each of them have different kind of types of capabilities that will be used for certain different scenarios.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Hayfielder, you mentioned the online survey, and we got the clarification on that. And we're going to open it up for comment tonight, but it sounds like if we have it open on the Facebook survey for a couple of weeks, people could also come next council meeting to the open forum if they want to make additional comments. Is that correct?
Yes, they could come and make additional comments at the open forum if they choose to.
All right. Are there any other questions, comments? Is there anyone in the audience that has any further comments they would like to make? All right, come on up.
Thank you. My name is Marianne Kelly Wright, and I live at 6926 Wentworth. I'm all in favor of these drones. I think they're terrific. I, as a taxpayer, just have a couple questions about how many you're going to acquire, what the cost is going to be, and whose budget that will come out of. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Henthorn, could you respond to that?
I believe we're purchasing 3 drones, 2 smaller ones, 1 larger one. It comes out of the public safety budget. It will be using forfeiture funds to purchase these. And that's money that doesn't come necessarily out of the general fund, but out of a forfeiture fund, which by state statute can only be used for training, equipment, or vehicles.
So forfeiture, like if there was a criminal activity, and can you define the forfeiture fund for us?
Yes, forfeiture funds come to us through cases that we work through public safety that may have either narcotics, vehicles, money attached to them. They go through the court process. Once there's a conviction, the money is usually forfeited and split up between the public safety entity, the state, and the county at a certain percentage. And that money is what we call a special revenue account. And then that money is used to offset some of the costs like a drone program or some of the other equipment costs that we need on a yearly basis.
All right. Did that answer your question, ma'am? Except for cost. Oh, do we know about? It's in the
I
packet.
believe the cost of the drone program with all the licensure, the 3 drones, the training is $31,000, I believe.
Yes, on the staff report, Councilmember Whalen pointed out it's under the financial impact. It's $31,600. Is there anyone else who wishes to comment? Okay, go ahead.
Heidi Geibor, again, 6915 Wentworth. I just want to say that, yeah, I'm in favor of this. I've often wondered in the past if we already had some drones that were being used, but it sounds like a great tool. And yeah, go for it.
Thank you. Did anyone call in online? All right, is there anyone else who wishes to comment now? correct me if I'm wrong, we don't actually take a vote on this. Is that correct? All right, so if there is no further comment or questions, then we'll move on with the agenda. Thank you so much for the presentation. Next, we have the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I wanted to announce that this is City Clerk Dustin Leslie's last meeting with us, and he is moving to another city in another role, and we wish him the best, and really want to thank you, Dustin, for all your work, and especially with elections. And it's we are asked to do more with elections, and I felt like you just did a fantastic job stewarding that, so thank you. And that's all I have.
I would like to add our thank you as well from myself personally, and I'm guessing on behalf of the rest of the council, for all your work and best wishes in your new adventures, whatever you're moving on to. Is there anyone else who wishes to say anything? Councilmember Troutman.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to also wish you all the best, and thank you not just for helping us run our elections, which I can't mention and not also lift up the fact that Minnesota has some of the highest voter participation in the state, and Richfield has some of the highest voter participation or the country, and Richfield has some of the highest voter participation in the state. So in your tenure here, you've shepherded well, an institution that we utilize, more than on a percentage basis, almost any other city in the country. And also because your office is a lot of times the first experience that people have with Richfield. I just want to thank you for serving my neighbors well. So thank you and good luck.
Councilmember Hayford O'Leary.
Yeah, thank you, Dustin. I've really appreciated your work, your professionalism, and just your enthusiasm for Richfield. That's been obvious since the first time I met you. Yeah, you clearly care about the work. You've shown up for Richfield, and I'm very grateful. And I know that your new employer will be very lucky to have you.
All right, thank you. Moving on, we will go to claims and payroll.
I'll move claims and payroll.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve claims and payroll. Is there any discussion? All in favor of approving claims and payroll, please say aye.
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 All opposed? We've approved the claims and payroll. Next, we'll move on to the hats off to hometown hits. Councilmember Whalen.
Thank you. Just a hats off to all of our Muslim neighbors who are finishing up Ramadan and celebrating Eid starting tonight.
Councilmember Hayford O'Leary.
I was just going to take my hats off to community development staff for finally getting, in cooperation with the council and the developer, getting the buildings at 101 East 66 demolished. That project has been going on for many, many years. I know the neighbors on that block have been very frustrated, so having a positive step forward, I know has been, a struggle for staff, a struggle for us all, so it is just awesome to finally see something happening there, and that those dilapidated buildings finally gone.
Councilmember Troutman.
On the lighter note, I'd like to thank all the Richfield residents who posted the Parks and Rec meme with regards to that demolition on the Richfield community page.
Can I add, since a resident asked specifically, they are required to fill in the holes.
Yes.
That has been asked specifically.
But on a more serious note, call me Dennis, one of our human rights commissioners, was not at the last meeting because her husband fell ill and then died the next morning. And so I just want to take a moment to recognize George Anthony Dennis, who's a longtime Richfield resident, longtime employee the Richfield Public Schools. Was a charter member of his church that's still thriving, and when you leave a legacy of a community behind you, it's an incredible thing. But our thoughts and prayers are with Calmy, and I just want to take my hat off to George Anthony Dennis and just say thank you for his service.
Thank you, Councilmember Troutman. I wanted to do a hats off to Patricia Ibone, who works with our police department. And this past Friday, we had at the community center, in cooperation with Richfield Community Ed and Mira and Veep and several other organizations and the Richfield Police Department, we had El Dia del Nino, and over 450 people showed up for the event, and they had activities for the kids to do, resources for the parents, and it was just a fabulous community event, and it was great to see so many people there. So hats off to Patricia and the whole team. With that, we have no further business. I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn the meeting. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We have